Hi, everyone. It gives me such great pleasure today to launch our first Inspiring Women Leaders podcast and to welcome our very first guest all the way from Australia, Dr. Samantha Pillay. Samantha overcame physical limitations from birth to become South Australia's first female urological surgeon. She's a passionate businesswoman and entrepreneur, and as the founder of Continence Matters, she has created a renowned centre of excellence. She's a strong advocate for gender equality, disability inclusion, healthy living, and cultural diversity. And this has led her to become an award-winning and three-time international Amazon #1 best-selling author. From her no recipe cookbook, helping the kitchen folks like me save time, money, and calories, to her picture book series that inspires children to dream big and aim high, she is helping Australia and now the world by promoting healthy living right through to challenging career gender stereotypes. As such a strong trailblazing leader whose purpose is so aligned with the goals of our Inspiring Leadership Foundation charity, where we're helping to empower women and young people around the world, it is only right that Samantha helps us launch our very first podcast. Samantha, thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Lee. I'm so pleased to be here. It's a great honor to be involved in launching your podcast. Very, very exciting.
Thank you. And it really is truly special. Having heard some of your story, everything you are doing today is truly inspirational. And I really don't know how you achieve it all. And there's so much more within you, I know. But I know that listeners would also love to hear the backstory. So, taking you right back to the roots of your childhood and your experiences, your family, your education. Can you share a little bit of that backstory with us and how that shaped you as the leader that you are today?
Sure. I think it's hard to really know how these things evolve. I definitely have gone through a path that some of it was planned, but a lot of it's what I would call follow the breadcrumbs. You do one thing and it leads to another. When I was very small, Uh, I was born with congenital hip dysplasia, and it's a hip condition, and basically I didn't walk. And they found out what was wrong late, and as a result, it wasn't easy to fix, and I had a lot of surgery. I spent most of my early childhood in hospital, and I started school in a wheelchair. And I was quite limited all throughout, my school years. I was able to, I progressed from wheelchair to long leg calipers and short leg calipers, but I was never able to play sport. I was always in a lot of pain. I couldn't sort of sit with the other kids on the floor cross legged. I couldn't sit on the floor full stop unless two people came and lifted me up. And my first experiences at school were not being able to move, waiting for someone to push me around in a wheelchair, waiting for someone else to take me to the toilet. There were no disabled toilets back then, so when I went to the toilet, the door couldn't be closed. Someone was in there with me. Usually, someone I didn't know was wiping my bum. It wasn't kind of great memories, really. So there, I never felt like the other kids because I couldn't run around. Uh, Australia is a sporting nation and always has been, as you probably are aware. And so I couldn't. Play sport. If there were school camps, I couldn't do the activities. I was, sitting with the teachers. I was the only sort of darker skinned person. I was in a good school that was predominantly a fee paying school system in Australia, and my mum's English, my father of Sri Lankan descent from Malaysia. So my mum was the fairest skin that you could imagine, and my dad the darkest skin that you could imagine. And that meant that I really wasn't part of the main group of kids at at the demographics at the school I was at. And my father spoke with an accent. He was hard to understand. He looked different, and all of that. I definitely wasn't the leader. I wasn't the popular girl. I wasn't the leader at school. I wasn't the prefect by any means. But I was smart because I studied because I couldn't do anything else other than study. So I finished school when I was 16 and went to medical school. And academics was the one thing that was easy for me. And I wanted to become a surgeon. And I suppose I'd had lots of surgery, but I also was sort of technical. I've probably discovered now that there's a creative side of me, which is that doing things with your hands. There was a lot of barriers to becoming a surgeon. So people would say things like, "Oh, you want to be a surgeon? Does that mean you don't want to have kids?" When I, by the time I finished my surgical training, 4% of surgeons in Australia were female. So I was on a training program. I was the first in my state of South Australia to do the specialty of urology, surgery of the urinary tract, that hadn't been done by a woman before. There was a smattering of women training and very few female surgeons, to the point that I never worked with a female surgeon. I never saw another female surgeon qualified operate on anyone until I became one. I was the first qualified consultant female surgeon I saw operate on a patient by the time I finished my training. So with that, there's a amount of leadership you have to learn. I wasn't a born leader. I had to learn to be a leader. You have to learn to lead the surgical team. You have to learn to be able to be a leader as a surgeon. I've enjoyed leadership. I enjoy studying. I enjoy teaching. And if you enjoy teaching, that's also a really useful skill as a leader, because you're sharing your knowledge. And I think that leadership is something that I've become more and more engaged with as I've got older. The ability to consciously stop and think about, what do I have to give the world? What do I have to share? And is something that I've thought about. So that has been a guiding light. I might not have intentionally envisioned all the things that I do in life, but I definitely thought, I want to be able to make a difference. I want to be able to contribute. What do I have to offer that's special and unique? One of the things, obviously, is I've subspecialized in the area of urinary incontinence, which affects many women, and many women suffer in silence. And so I realized that I was in a position to be able to not just treat women, but end stigma, raise community awareness, and really increase the level of education in the health professional. It's something that just gets left out in the health community when it comes to medical school, specialist training, and try and really improve that level of training. But I looked at my own experiences as a woman and the barriers I faced in surgery and realized, well, in actual fact, I can go bigger. And I can go bigger and look at women, elevating women generally, supporting women in leadership, and inspiring girls. And I thought the biggest impact I can have is in the early years, before the gender stereotypes form, giving girls that self-belief. I had to overcome barriers, and there's so much that are being done, and fantastic people like yourself and organizations like yourself that are making changes. But the self-belief in the individual will allow them to also overcome those barriers. The barriers we want to remove and dismantle, but giving them that drive and passion. So that's what led me to the early childhood books.
So can I just look into this a little bit further? So if I think about myself growing up in Ireland, and role models, well, who were the role models around me? I had nuns, so I was going to be a nun. I went to Catholic school, then I was going to be a teaching nun. Then I saw The Sound of Music, I was going to be a singing teaching nun. And so in this microcosm, almost this very binary way of seeing aspiration and culturally back when in my day, there wasn't very much in terms of inspiration. If I think about me, I think I checked out rather than checked in. And there's something within you that approached this different. And I'm ashamed to say that now, actually. If I think back to then, I could have been very different, but I can't change the past. But for you, it was within you. And you navigated the complexity of all of those challenges, and you embraced the world. What were the challenges that you were facing, cultural, societal, physical, mental?
Obviously, at the time, I didn't know. The question is now, in my mid-50s, do I have the ability to see that? I, I think I've always been a hard worker, and I've always needed to keep busy. Now, I didn't have role models. I didn't know any. Basically, my mum was a stay-at-home mum. My role models were teachers and stay-at-home mums. So the concept of even working was foreign to me for a woman. My father did give me a good work ethic. He was a GP and he worked just relentlessly like a family doctor would. And he was a very, very hard worker. Part of it came from that. Part of it, I think there were many facets. Because I was always in so much pain, and because I really felt that I wasn't really that included in society generally, I felt like I was excluded. There was like a block in my brain that basically allowed me to just devote all of my energy 100% without having to care about my thoughts or feelings. I could almost dissociate and push myself and work so hard that I just didn't matter. That it didn't matter what happened to me. It didn't matter how much anyone hurt me. It didn't matter whether I survived. It didn't matter whether I succeeded. It didn't matter whether I failed. There was nothing to worry about. So I had nothing. There was nothing at stake, which allowed me to go all out, I suppose. There was I haven't really ever had a big fear of failure. Yeah. The Because I suppose you start off thinking you are a failure, so you haven't got you when you start off from that base, you haven't really got a lot to lose. So everything that you exceed in life is exceeding your expectations, and you feel like you're doing better than you would have or should have or could have done anyway. So that was some of I think the drives. Within that, I think there were a lot of things relating to the people around me and culturally that give those messages of you're not good enough, you're not good enough, you're not good enough. And they only drive, they also contribute to driving to prove yourself, to prove, I must be good enough, I must be good enough. And then I think these things influence you when you're young. Hopefully they don't drive me but I'm sure in those early years they were driving factors that that you think you've got to prove that you're good enough. So I think probably that's some of what led me into this path where I am very good at just pushing myself.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you know, there's so much resonance in that. And as I think about, rather than when there is that challenge and people around you don't necessarily believe in you, it's the good fight. It's the one that you embrace for yourself rather than the fighting against the system, fighting against, which ultimately is cutting off your nose to spite your face. It's fighting against yourself, your future, your full potential based on what everything around you says you can't do. And it really strikes me that there's an integrity and a value system that sits deep within you that is your guiding star. It's taking you through life in a way that it takes grit, clearly hard work. You've spoken about learning and growth and not knowing things, but actually just embracing it, knowing that it's okay to fail, but embracing it anyway. But it is the good fight, and that good fight comes down to you for yourself. And then you turn that into others. And I think we're going to explore that, what you can do for other people as we explore your career as well. As we think about your work as a surgeon and navigating the wonderful world of being a trailblazer, probably the only woman in the room, the only woman in the boardroom. Share with us your story and your experiences of that, because that can't have been easy as well.
Yes, but it definitely wasn't easy. And I definitely was the only female many times in the room on the committee. And there were so many facets of that. I was young. I went through medical school. I got straight onto surgical training. So by the time I finished my surgical training, I, that was 25 years ago or something. I was like 30. I was fairly young still as a qualified surgeon. And so the first thing was, oh, you're too young to be a surgeon. And then, people would be, the patients would be, well, yes, that's fine, but when's my surgeon coming? And, okay, well, if you're my surgeon, that's fine, but who's actually going to be doing the operation, and it went on and on and on.
Yeah.
So there was those aspects. And then there was the professional aspects where, as the woman in the room, you're just invisible. People just don't listen to what you have to say. You can say it, but they don't hear it. And or they are uncomfortable with the situation because they've never had to deal with a professional woman. And so they're struggling with their own awkwardness, that they can't function properly or say inappropriate things just out of nervousness or God knows what. So it was a challenging environment, and I was very young, and there was no gender equity or women's rights or, Me Too or, reporting people or, there was none of that out there yet. So it was a pretty scary area. A lot of the time, it was about defeminizing myself. So to try and make sure that, I wasn't attractive or seen as a woman. So, I mean, just, I don't know, wearing trousers and, not, no, but just the clothes I wore or whatever at work, as opposed to outside of work. And I mean, I must admit, I still would have wear different clothes in a professional that I would wear outside. Just what I would talk about, I would be in a professional way. Even when I was younger, if I was at work conferences, I quickly learned that at medical conferences not to drink alcohol, because that was just like, you know, just I wasn't as aware, and people would just behave badly, and you know, I just felt that that wasn't a good thing. That wasn't really a place for a young woman to be drinking alcohol in a work environment, because basically the guys were getting smashed, you know, around you, and I had to be on guard.
So many women will share those experiences and will understand that sentiment. Yeah.
Um, so I think there's a process that evolved in me leading. I mean, I now if I look at what I do, I sort of go, oh my God, have I become a feminist? What is a feminist? I don't think I knew what a feminist was when I was younger. I advocate for women. Um, but when I was younger, a feminist was someone who was I very politically, a political activist. I kind of had this envision when I was a child, sort of, or 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 anti-male or something. I don't know. It seemed a very strong word to me when I was a child, if I really even knew what it was. We're growing up. But I've ended up advocating very strongly for women and girls, and that part becomes because I've exceeded my expectations, and I've come to be able to do so much that I never even thought was possible. It's like I suppose I dreamt of becoming a surgeon, and you have this goal, and it's quite hard to get on and get through. Will I ever get on the training program? And then it's like, will I ever get through the training? And then will I actually pass my exams? And then you get there, and it's like, wow, I was actually able to do that. I had a dream and I was able to do it. And probably all along must have believed I could do it.
Mm.
And realized that self-belief was really important. That was what, uh, fundamentally, if I never believed I wouldn't could do it, I wouldn't succeeded. So I realized that self-belief took someone who really, I would have thought, would never have been able to achieve it. And that's my drive, wanting to share that, because I think if I can do it, anyone can.
Yeah. I think this is one of the many challenges that so many people face, actually looking externally for validation or some form of permission to pursue life and careers in a way that, yeah, but you'll always be limited by other people's expectations of you. So that internal validation, that drive from within is just so important. And it strikes me that you've had that from the very beginning. And so then who, because if there is a lack of role models that are out there, who inspired you through your life? Who are the top one or two standout leaders that have really inspired you to be who you are today?
That is tricky. I definitely wasn't in driven to achieve to be like someone.
Mm.
I never had a person in my head that I wanted to emulate. Um, a- and I've had some amazing mentors along the way, but I never had a role model where I thought, wow, I just want to be like them. That led to me really charting my own path. Um, and one of the things is, I think, with leadership is that in actual fact, it's quite scary. It Because you have this idea that you want to do something, and there'll always be people who don't support you. There'll always be people who doubt you. There'll always be people who criticize you, and you really have to believe in yourself and what you're doing and your purpose and your mission to do it, and not care. You have to be a bit thick-skinned. And surgical training definitely taught me how to be thick-skinned. So I would say to yes, I'm definitely not the leader. You don't have to have a role model. You
Mm.
don't have to have a mentor. You don't have to have anyone helping you. You don't have you don't have to have any skills. You don't have to have any luck. Um, you can still do it.
Well, you are the depiction of being the trailblazer, the first, in so many different ways. So, and that comparison piece, and especially with social media and, these expectations that are thrust upon us sometimes, it's almost like that comparison is the thief of joy. It's the thief of your own purpose. It's the thief of everything that you yourself could be, if you are always comparing. So I love that. Have you got inspiration around you today? I'm really hoping that we've got more inspiring role models today than maybe that we did in the past.
Yes, I do. And there's been a few things that have come along because I I really was at a point in my life where I was like going, I wasn't looking to do more things. I was in a situation where, I was enjoying being a businesswoman, running a practice. I was enjoying being a surgeon and having clinical work. I didn't enjoying business, and I was doing a bit of business speaking and mentoring. And I wanted to do more work to inspire women and help them overcome barriers to in gender equity, to be able to actually achieve what I knew they were capable of achieving. Uh, as a result, when you're in some of these positions, you start to meet other leaders
Mm.
and other people that are doing amazing things. And I actually even got nominated for a couple of awards, and that I didn't get. And you look at the people and go, "Oh my god, they're like doing so much more. I thought I was doing a lot. I thought I was doing really well. And then I'm like going, suddenly I'm like going, oh my God, I could be doing so much more, um, and that really shifted my vision. So my vision went from being a successful surgeon, being recognized, amongst my peers, being a leader in my field, working, in that area, and very much involved in me as a surgeon, to uh, way beyond. I suddenly, uh, so one of the big messages with my books is dream big, aim high. But I say to girls, take your dream, double it, and double it again, because I suddenly thought, oh, I want to aim for this in life, because I never even imagined aiming for, other areas. And it's once this like veil was lifted, and I suddenly went, oh, hang on. Well, why don't I just write a series of books and, start being an advocate and develop this and, just add a whole lot of stuff. It was like suddenly I could do triple what I was doing, because I had never even imagined it before. And so being lucky enough to be nominated for a couple of awards where, you go to these nights and you just go, wow, there are some unbelievable people out there that are just doing so much. It's like, I never even thought of doing, 10 times more than what I'm doing now. Because everyone tells you, oh, wow, that's some really amazing, you're being a surgeon. And suddenly like, that is so not enough anymore. So uh, that's a lot. I get inspiration from my patients. My patients are amazing. People who uh, have to overcome a lot with not much
Yeah.
are truly inspiring. And I'm lucky that I see remarkable patients with remarkable strength dealing with remarkable issues on a daily basis. They are a massive inspiration. I have, staff that work with me that provide great inspiration. And I'm a single mum. I have a son who is just obviously my world, and love, that provides a huge amount of inspiration. But I'm one of these people that I'm an inspiration sponge. I just love being around people, and whether it's sport or healthy eating or you name it, I see it and I want to do it.
Yeah, it's absolutely wonderful. And it kind of blasts this, that you are the sum of the people that you surround yourself by. It kind of blasts that out into the atmosphere, because actually you've defined your success and your life and how you want to live for yourself. No matter what is around you, you've almost like broken down the myths and the barriers in order to just navigate your own path, which is very inspiring to hear. And also, yeah, so let's actually lean into that a little bit more, because I know it comes up time and time again, and it's no longer gendered. Things have evolved so much, and we've got greater balance between the roles of males and females in work and in life. But how did you, because as a single mum, and I can see your passion and your drive and how hard you work. We've talked about that, but how did you balance it all? And I know from that you've had stories of bringing your son along to board meetings and to committee meetings and scientific projects, but how did you balance it all, and what's your tips for other people to think about what balance really means?
Well, I think everyone's individual. Every parent and every child is unique. So I can share what I did, but I don't know. I don't know if it's worked, and I don't know if it's worked, but works for other people. For me, I am, I want to be the best that I can be at everything. Right now, the best that I can be at everything, it is not necessarily that good, right? If you want to like walk down the street with me or swim in the pool, if you put me in a race, my best will be last. But that doesn't matter. I still want to be my best at everything, and I wanted to be the best parent I could. And I never thought that I was going to end up being a single parent. Um, and so again, I put my heart and soul into everything. So I really like when my son was really little, I thought very clearly about what I was going to play with him every day. I was very much, Montessori had out what that day's activity was going to be. I was in a fortunate position where I had help for sort of on a domestic side. I could help someone to come and clean the house and do some shopping and stuff like that for me. I made sure that it was quality, even though it wasn't quantity time. I had my son come into work every day until he was 18 months of age. I would make sure I spent time playing with him in the morning before work, and in the evenings I would have hours of play every day with him. I'm a big reader, so I was reading 40 books a day to him, but these are those little children's picture books and things. They only take like 1 or 2 minutes to read. um and would read, hey, these would be the books I'd read in the morning. These would be the books I'd read in the evening. So I really push myself. I'm the sort of person that will, get up at 4 o'clock in the morning. I'm, multiple lists. I am a worker. The hardest thing for me to do is stop working.
Yeah.
If I had a day off, I'd be thinking, let me think about all the work I can get done. I am definitely a workaholic. Now I don't work as hard as I used to, 10, 15 years ago as a surgeon. I work just as hard though, because I know I do my other hobbies.
We've had conversations. I know that actually, whether it's working or learning, you fill your life with very rich experiences, and also your passion for your son and what that means to you as well. But you know, that sense of quality being the most important factor. It's not always about quantity, but it is about quality. And actually, but you do work extremely hard and you learn hard too. And you balance it all. It's very inspirational to see and hear your stories. And you do. It's not just about the surgery. You're now an author. You're a speaker. You're helping to change the landscape for everybody to thrive, to create these inclusive environments where whether it's gender, whether it's disability, you are helping to change society and change people's experiences within it. So talk to me a little bit about the books and the passion and the inspiration behind the books that you created and your hope for them for the future.
So again, like these things, it started off with thinking, oh, I'm going to write a book when I'm a surgeon to um, about a little girl, to inspire young girls to think about being a surgeon. I didn't want every girl to be a surgeon, but I wanted every girl to believe she could be a surgeon, or just imagine being a surgeon for a day. Because if she imagined that she could be a surgeon, she could imagine that she could be whatever.
Yeah.
So that came down, and again, I really consciously thought, okay, I want to do something about changing the number of women in surgery, because surgery was seen as a bad choice for a woman. You did everything. If you looked at what was good for family and what was good for motherhood and what was good for being a good mother and what was good for being a good wife, then surgery was bottom of the list. And then I did it and I was like, oh my God, it's top of the list. I get more money. I work for myself. I've got flexible hours. I'm my own boss. I'm the one running the show, whether it's sports day or whatever, school holidays. I am in a very good position compared to a lot of other medical positions. Now, I know that NHS is different, but I have ended up being a full private practice surgeon, and I own my own practice and I work for myself. So if I want to have a week off, have a week off. If I want to start work at 10 o'clock, I can start work at 10 o'clock. So for me, it's been fantastic. And it's created an extra income that could allow me to, whether the school or tuition or the things I wanted to be able to give my son, that I could do. So I thought surgery is actually a great career for a woman. And not only that, I realized that for me, because I'm a learner and I'm a teacher, my skills were good. I wanted to have skills to be able to that I personally could teach my son. So things like he got dragged everywhere, every conference, every board meeting, whatever. And, he ended up on the state debating team because he just was, already a very good public speaker by the time he was 8. Oh, yeah, exactly. And so there were a few key things. First of all, I stopped trying to juggle my work and motherhood. I realized that being a good mother, my interpretation of it was sharing my work with my son. If he could public speak and run a spreadsheet and knew business and finances and, could manage people and had emotional intelligence and could understand strategy and leadership all by the time he was 8, I was doing a good job, right? So, whether it's KPIs or financial reports or end of year, he's there. He can, so he takes it for granted, but he doesn't realize that maybe he's 16, other kids his age wouldn't be able to sit there for 2 hours with an accountant and look at the spreadsheets and understand, various business entities and stuff like that. But, he's all over it. So, the being able to manage finances, budget, whatever, understand and appreciate money, various things, so many aspects that I wanted to teach him that I could teach him. So I never tried to separate the two. The more I had him involved in my work, whether he was taking notes or changing slides or keeping times at meetings and conferences or handing out whatever, it was child
Myself and
labor
my
from day
grandkids.
one.
I'll start employing them soon. Fantastic. I love it. Do you know, if I asked your son the same question that I asked you, who are your inspiring leadership role models? I have absolutely no doubt that he would be naming you right up there as somebody who's really been deeply affected in life for the whole of his life. It go right back to you. That's something very special.
Yeah, I am lucky from that point of view. There's a few things that I kind of do that really sort of punch high with a teenage boy. Like, I got a testimonial for my When I'm an Astronaut book from a NASA astronaut. My son's like, he was like super excited. And I go, yeah, but your mom's a surgeon and you get one email from an astronaut and you're like over the moon. But no, he is my greatest cheerleader or whatever.
So I take it
I'm
you're not
very
going to
lucky.
write a book on, a singing, teaching nun anytime in the near future. You're aiming high with the astronauts and the prime ministers and presidents. That's another one of your books. So we're really raising the game, really raising those aspirations. Again, talk to us a little bit about the books that you're illustrating and your hope for how they're going to change the lives of women and young women. I'm going to definitely be reading them to my granddaughter and my grandson too.
So part of the When I'm a Surgeon was to show people that surgeons didn't just do surgery and see patients. It was about teaching and travel and innovation. And that led me to, and I enjoyed the idea of learning how, it was another whole skill. I had to learn how to self-publish a book and, everything that went with that. So I was like, oh, that was a lot of fun. I want to do another one. So it started in a series and I did When I'm an Entrepreneur, When I'm an Astronaut. And the idea was to show, because the protagonist in each book is a girl, and they're not really stories. They're actually a series of affirmations that open a dialogue with whoever the parent or is reading the child. So it's not a little story where a child goes and reads really on their own. It's a conversation starter, and that's what I loved with books. I always found that books didn't have enough depth for my son, who's very smart. And these books, you can go as deep as you want with the books into the images and the meaning of the images and little Easter eggs are hidden and what they mean. There are a series of affirmations of what makes a good leader, what makes a good, what's important in STEM, what's important in medicine, what's important in business, what makes an entrepreneur. And you could go very deep with an adult in these series of affirmations. And the idea was to allow a young girl to believe that she could be all these things at the early age before society got to her,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
to give her the resilience and fight that I had to be able to overcome no matter what barriers stood in the way. Because I really believe that self-belief will be what will push someone. And what is very interesting is through writing these books, I've spoken to people who have, become astronauts or become leaders in whatever area. And many of them will say, there was a person I met, something I saw on TV, a toy I had, a book I read, you know, whatever. And in that moment, I decided
Yeah.
at the age of 6 that I would be.
Hmm.
And these people have become these leaders in the world. And it's very interesting. And I wanted to be the person helping to make those girls see there and then that vision, because that vision is the seed. Everything else will follow. But that belief,
And there is also something here around the resources that you're creating that helps the dialogue between the mother, father, and the daughter, that helps to explore in depth as well, what those future careers could look like. There's online materials that you've got, but there's lots of resources available. Talk to us a little bit about, because I think that's really important. And so often we just hand the storybooks to a child, and then that's it. Or now we've got systems that play storybooks to them, so we can just walk out of the bedroom and we can just leave them to it. We don't need to read to them anymore. But you've very thoughtfully crafted materials and content that helps not just the individual child, but the relationship that they have with parent and people of influence around them, that can open up a dialogue and open up that inspiration even more. And even parents can learn a few things too. I know I do.
that's right. I have got resources on my website where people can go into and actually look at the things in the images, find out the history, whether it's, why a particular image has been chosen, or read about the history of some of the images. What I wanted to do, I wanted to impact gender barriers and gender equity.
Mm.
And I wanted to do it in a positive way. I didn't want to go around and lecture people. I didn't want to tell people off. I didn't want to tell people what they had to do. And I didn't want to share all the hideous experiences I had growing up and doing surgical training as a female. I didn't, because it was negative. And the last thing I wanted to do was be go, going out and reliving any traumas that I'd faced. I wanted it to be a positive message, not a negative one. And I wanted it to have the biggest impact. So I felt that prevention, just that's my health hat, is always better than cure. You're better off preventing these problems than trying to fix them, which is why I wanted to target children. But I also thought that by having these delightful pictures and delightful images and delightful stories, I could brainwash the parents reading the books at the same time to their children and impact gender stereotypes at all levels of society. Whether I achieve that or not, but that was my vision, that I could prevent it in the children, brainwash the parents, and change the world.
Well, what is lovely is we see the world changing around us as well. So this concept, coupled with the fact that we've got Kamala Harris as our first VP, a woman of color, creating so many firsts, like you, a trailblazer, and whatever happens, the outcome there. But we're seeing so many firsts around the world. We're seeing so much more role modeling and representation. So it's really wonderful to see society shifting at the same time as all of these resources that captured at a very early age the imagination of young people too. So is there anything more that we should know about your books and where you're going to take it? Because you again, this learning piece, you've just been through a mega course. So what does the future look like? What does your legacy look like?
Well, specifically on the latest learning curve, the creative side of me, which is, something now I get to do on my weekend, especially now that I've got a teenager and I'm not needed the same way I used to be, is AI filmmaking. So the ability to use generative AI to be able to make film. And so I've just completed a course in that, or 2 courses, and I'm about to do a third. Um, and that allows another medium to get a message across, hopefully in a positive way. And and part of that is wanting to be able to use film or video to create messages, which is generally what most people do, messages and stories. But these are stories that wouldn't otherwise see the light of day. So what AI does is give someone like me that has no team, no budget, no previous experience, the ability to put a film together that otherwise would have cost a lot of money. And I can make it about things that aren't associated with money. So a lot of the media in this area is dictated by the money that that's required because it's a product that's going to be sell or it's entertainment or various. So one of the courses, I've just finished the course, so people can see on my YouTube some of the videos that I've made. But one of the ones I made was about community awareness about incontinence, trying to raise awareness about incontinence and end the stigma and help people come forward. These are not movies that anyone's putting up money to produce now. The other one that I've just made is about promoting surgery as a career for women. Right. So there's no commercial organization behind this putting money up to make videos. And so I see it as the ability to make that medium and use that medium in a way that can promote messages. I'm also hoping right now that I'm actually helping train some of these tools, because there's a huge gender bias in these tools, in the sense that, every time I forget to write female surgeon, I get an image of a male, so they're very biased in the prompting, and there's a real lack of diversity, and it's really hard when you're generating images and videos with AI to get women in male dominated roles and get diversity. And it might take me 100 generations, because it ultimately just wants to give you based on stats. I hope that what I'm doing helps at least balance that and impacts that industry, and helps reduce the stereotypes that will get addressed, but as it's new technology and it's emerging. So I'm hoping that's a medium that I can use. I'm hoping that I can, and obviously when I wrote When I'm the President and released that this year, I didn't know what was going to actually unfold, but it is about the first female president of the United States, which, we're all going to be waiting and watching to see what happens this year, but it's become even more topical just recently. And the politics was driven by, again, another area where women face a lot of barriers. And, we've got 64 countries, the biggest election year in the history of the world this year, with more countries voting. So it's a very much women and women politics is in the spotlight. And When I'm the President is much more in the spotlight now, with the US election than it was a few months ago. So I hope that I can continue to normalize, I suppose, to normalize women in male-dominated roles, through various media, whether that be through speaking, whether it be the work that I do, whether it be through the books, whether it be through film. And I'm sure I'm going to find other ways to do it.
Yeah, and it reminds me of, actually, because technology and AI is becoming such a significant feature, the way that you join the dots, the way that you think about the agenda in its most holistic form is wonderful. And I recently saw a Dove campaign by Unilever, and what they did was they asked AI to actually go back through previous Dove campaigns and create a campaign based on the perfect woman. And what it created was a very diverse range, women of all sizes, shapes. And I thought it was one of the most moving pieces, because it said something about the organization and its intention, its morality, its integrity, because it can only generate what's there at the moment. And so it told the story of actually just how powerful it is when you start to create change across a number of different areas. So it just reminded me of that. And I think it's a fantastic piece of work that you're doing. If you were to give a piece of advice to others that are just starting out, what would your one piece of advice be?
Believe in yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah. Dream big. As I say, dream big, aim high, double your dream, and then believe you can do it. Because you have to get the skills. It's not about whether you have the skills. It's not about whether you have the talent. It's not about whether you're capable of. You become capable.
Yeah.
You get the skills. You find the way. So you have to believe in yourself, work hard, and invest in yourself. So I am a big learner when it comes to studying, So like when I was doing this AI course, I actually logged the hours because I was really interested one weekend, because I was working. and I finished work on a Friday, and I came home about 5:30, and I did 4 hours. And then I got up on the Saturday and I did 12 hours on the Saturday. I did 13 hours. This is actual hours at the desk working on the course on the Sunday, and then another hour Monday morning before I started my 8 o'clock operating list. So I did 25, 30, 30 hours. I did 30 hours between, knock off time Friday and Monday morning. So I really do push myself. I put in the hours. Um, and I always look at things and I go, okay, if I put it in 100 hours, what will I have to show for it? And it's amazing what you can achieve in 100 hours.
Yeah. So let me how do you look after yourself in all of this? Because I imagine that a lot of people listening now would be feeling really quite overwhelmed with the amount of energy that you really throw and the amount of time that you give to either learning or leading. How do you look after
Yes.
yourself?
I've always had to prioritize looking after myself. And that is because I couldn't exercise the same, way that other people could. And I was really I've had a hip replacement 7 or 8 years ago, which has really been life changing. And I can do things now that I never was able to do before in my life. And I was very limited by pain for many years. Um, and that meant I always had to really work hard to try and keep my weight down, because just 1 or 2 extra kilos would just dramatically increase my pain levels. One hip was a lot worse than the other. Well, I had corrective surgery as a child, and it sort of worked on one side and didn't work on the other. And it was repeated, but it still didn't work. So I really had to always fight hard for my health. So I mean, I'm older now. I don't drink alcohol. That's a health thing. Just trying to look after my health. I did some, I've written an article. I've got some articles on my website. I can read an article about why I stopped drinking alcohol for health reasons. Um, I exercise, regularly. I'm now at the stage where I've got to do, weights for my bone density and all of those sorts of wonderful things that
Yeah, I'm
women
there with
have
you.
to face as they go through that other part of life. I eat quite healthy. I'm not fanatical, but I'll have something like, a dessert or a biscuit or a cake, but I'm not, I never ever drink soft drink. I've never bought a packet of crisps. I've never eaten Hungry Jacks or food like that. Um, I don't get takeaway like, you know, want ever. I'm pretty healthy, I'll have fruit. One of my manager the other day came to work with a piece of fruit because, it's the power of product placement and, you know, power of influencing by just watching me. It just slowly brainwashed him and brought in a piece of fruit.
Brilliant. Love
So my yeah,
it.
I'm bad on sleep
Yeah.
and coffee.
And our health is so important to us more and more as we understand actually exactly what's in the products that we eat, and we're really being conscious and careful about what it does, and long-term health, longevity. It's important that we do nurture and look after our health and well-being. And you've also got another book, which is specifically related to actually how you can eat well, but economically, healthily, and without the complexity that often comes with many cookbooks that are out there. So what we'll do is we'll make sure that we connect with all of your resources, the millions of different. Is there no stopping this woman? So we'll make sure that we connect on with this after this. Can I just ask, in your darkest moment, what, if you're happy to share, is there a darkest moment in your life that you're kind of willing to share that story, and how you experienced it and how you navigated through?
I've had plenty of dark moments. Plenty of dark moments. I always feel like I'm one of these people that flies a little bit too close to the sun. But there is something about, there are times in my life where I feel, I don't know what the analogy is, like you're on a cliff, you're on the edge of the cliff, and it just all seems terrible. And there's a point where I have like a second engine, like it's bad, it's getting worse, it's worse, it's so bad, it's so bad. There's that point that pulls me back from that moment where it's just all too much, where I come back fighting bigger and stronger and angrier than before and pull myself out. And there's been, unfortunately, several times in my life, due to just some very bad things that have happened, that have pushed me to that place. And when it's all at a point where I just want to give up the fight, and what I mean by that is trying to do it all. For me, give up and go, it is all too hard. It's all too hard. It's all too hard to run a business. It's all too hard to do everything that I do. You've got everything, you're employing people, you're running a house. I'm trying to, work as a surgeon, do all these things, and, whatever it is that I'm doing at that stage in life where I just cannot just think that I've just got to quit. I've just got to quit and just, whatever, I don't know, go and wake up tomorrow and decide what I'm going to do. There's something that's like a second engine just suddenly kicks in, and I'm bigger and stronger and able to overcome whatever it is at that time that has just knocked me. It's usually as a result, of something going wrong or someone treating me badly or whatever. And so that's I think the thing that's got me through. And one thing I would say is when there's those moments where you just think, I can't do this, it's just too hard, I've got to give up and walk away, you just want to get in the car and drive away and start a new life or whatever. The sun sets and the sun rises and tomorrow's another day, and you actually can do it. Most problems do actually go away. You can find a way to get around situations. Life's, I think there was some key moments. Life's not fair. There's nothing about what's fair. There's nothing about, justice, often. And, you can get dealt bad cards in life. And if I ever have gone to a place where I start to feel sorry for myself, that is a very, very bad place to go. Yeah. I just do not allow myself to feel sorry for myself, because that is just a recipe for that will just sap the energy out of me and stop me being able to do things. And so just having those sort of thoughts just are destructive, and they will take away what is rightfully mine in life.
So is there a particular technique or top tip that you could share about this, or anything that we've spoken about today that could really help our listeners in their leadership, in life, in navigating success?
I think the top tip is, what I've learned is, you can do it. You can do it, and actually more. Way more than you think you can do.
Samantha, is there anything else that you feel that we should have covered off today that you'd really like to spread your message around and share with listeners?
Well, you've taken me to a lot of places in my past. My biggest dream is to unlock in people a belief that they have in themselves. If I could make every person I meet believe in themselves as much as I believe in them, that would be my dream.
What a lovely way to end this podcast today. Samantha, it's an absolute pleasure. I have goosebumps from just your richness, your content, your experiences, your advice, your wisdom, and how abundant you have been in sharing that with us. I'm wishing you every success on your journey. I know that you're going to make an impact, not just across Australia, but around the world. Wishing you every success in that journey and looking forward to reading your beautiful books to my grandchildren, of which I now have 3 as of this weekend. So very excited for that. Thank you for all the work that you do, and excited to see what's next.
Thank you so much.